In the cold black silence of the North Atlantic, more than a century ago, a ship of dreams went to rest. Her name is a world memory. Her story is 1,000 echoes. Tonight, the ocean yields one more secret. It began as a routine survey, mapping, the wreck site checking sonar returns. What the team found would change the story of one lost cargo and the man who kept it secret. We're here because the ocean still remembers. It keeps things people thought were gone forever, and sometimes it reveals them. We were doing a standard sweep. Depth, coordinates, the ROV operator called it. At first we thought it was just detritus, railing, lamp casings. But then the geometry changed. Rectangular shapes, stacked like bars. The sonar return was dense, reflective. We eased the camera in and the light hit a flat face, unmistakably metal. The manipulator arm brushed the silt and revealed the stamped faces of what looked like bars. What they saw beneath a collapsed deck was unmistakable. Stacked rectangular masses, tightly packed, their metallic sheen preserved against the oceans. Slow corrosion. Everything in that recovery box felt unreal. It's one thing to see treasure in movies. It's another to have brass and stamped faces, and the faint smell of old wood when it hits the air after a century. Among the bars were objects that confounded expectations. Not merely bullion, but something else. A small crown, created not for royalty, but perhaps as a private emblem. Heavy chains, strings of pearls, and a curious uncut stone yellow as sunlight. A nugget of gold rock, raw and ancient. When artifacts come from salt water, the first priority is stabilization. Salt crystals can expand and destroy surfaces in hours. We desalinate, we monitor pH, we treat the metal to remove chloride ions. Each object tells a story if we let it speak slowly. Conservators bathed each item, documented every flake, every stamping. The gold bars bore an assay mark, faint but legible after cleaning, and a maker's punch, a signature that linked production to a mint known to work with private clients. Those marks are like fingerprints. They tell us where the metal was, refined, possibly who commissioned it. Combined with shipping records, we began to connect dots. The bars weren't mere currency. They were a private reserve, a cache moved in secrecy. The crown is not regal in the official sense. It is an object of private symbolism, perhaps used in a club or as a family heirloom. Its gold leaf had been applied with artisanship. Its pearls, now saline-pitted, once glowed ivory. Crowns like this were often created for private pageants, clubs, or collectors who liked masquerade or ceremony. The motifs on its rim, laurel and ship's wheel, suggested a maritime pride, or a commemoration of a voyage. The investigation reached beyond metallurgy. We sought a human face. In the archives, a faded letter hinted at a man who refused to be named in public registers, an American entrepreneur known for discreet transactions and a private life that valued secrecy. We followed the breadcrumbs, property records, probate files, passenger lists. It was painstaking, but we found a family line, descendants who had stories passed down like heirlooms. Granddad moved the family jewels for safekeeping. One note said, on board, a large ship. My grandmother used to whisper about trunks that never arrived. She never spoke of it in public. To her, it was a wound and an embarrassment. How do you mourn property? For descendants, the recovery was a reopening of old grief. For maritime archaeologists, it was an ethical knot. Who owns artifacts recovered from a ship that is both a gravesite and a historical site? The Titanic wreck lies within a complex legal framework. Nations claim different rights. International guidelines emphasize preservation over plunder. When an object is recovered, the legal questions are practical and moral. Who can claim ownership? Where should artifacts be conserved? In private hands, public museums, or repatriated? The team worked with international authorities and descendant families. A consensus emerged. The artifacts would be conserved publicly, documented thoroughly, and displayed with context, not spectacle. The ocean story would not be reduced to treasure hunting. When you descend on a site like that, you feel the weight of history. We talked to each other more softly. We moved as if we were entering a chapel, Half the work is nerves, the other half is patience. We excavate like detectives. The sediment layers tell time. A chain across a beam might show how the deck collapsed. We map everything before moving a single thing. That discipline separates archaeology from salvage. The diver's confrontation with the treasure was not the Hollywood rush of plunder. It was forensic. Each object had to be recorded in situ, photographed, 3D scanned, measured. Every artifact mapped to its exact place on the wreck. Among the recovered items, the pearls drew a particular kind of attention. The pearls, once strung and luminous, had shifted into a whisper of their former selves. Conservators studied them under microscopes, identifying species, likely origin and age. Pearls can narrow a story to a region, to an oyster bed in the Gulf or the South Pacific. Pearls reveal trade routes. Each one can carry isotopic signatures that tie them to a place and an era. That's how we build context. Not only seeing objects as wealth, but as evidence of movement, of trade, of people. The uncut stone, a natural gold specimen like a heart of the earth, was perhaps the most haunting piece. It suggested the collector's taste for the raw and the natural, for objects that speak to time itself. That nugget could be placer gold, formed by rivers long ago and valued for its rarity. It's a different kind of object, not merely refined. Wealth, but a specimen chosen for its geological story. Restoration is a vow, to preserve what remains without rewriting the object's history. Conservators remove centuries of salt, stabilize fragile attachments, and document every intervention. The public display that follows must respect the artifact's authenticity. We keep a full chain of custody and an intervention log. Every cleaning step is reversible as much as possible. The artifacts don't belong to the conservator, they belong to history. News of the find did what such stories always do. It stirred meaning. Museums proposed exhibitions that would present not only the objects, but the broader human story. Migration, wealth, secrecy, and loss. We will place the artifacts within narrative frames, the life of passengers, the businessman's story, the maritime context. It's about honoring those who died and educating those who come. The recovered items force us to ask practical and ethical questions. Were these objects simply wealth, or were they personal items imbued with memory and identity? Every artifact carries multiple lives: the life of manufacture, the life of use, the moment of loss, and the long afterlife on the seabed. Treasure, we remember, is a complicated word. For some, it conjures richness and triumph. For others, loss and memory. Here at the wreck of a ship that was both a marvel and a grave, the recovered items are not trophies, they are witnesses. Holding those objects, seeing them conserved, felt like closing a loop. But it also reopens questions. Justice, ownership, remembrance. It made me think about what we pass down, what we hide. Conservators bathed each item, documented every flake, every stamping. The gold bars bore an assay mark, faint but legible. After cleaning and a maker's punch, a signature that linked production to a mint known to work with private clients. Those marks are like fingerprints. They tell us where the metal was refined, possibly who commissioned it. The crown, small and intimate, revealed a private kind of ceremony. Its motifs, laurel and ship's wheel, hinted at a personal mythology, a proud seafaring identity, a celebration meant for a closed circle rather than the public stage. In its dents and repairs you can read the years of someone's life, the care and the hasty mending of a treasured object. Chains, heavy and ornate, suggested personal adornment and display. They were found alongside the bars and the crown, wrapped in salt-caked fabric and protected in crates that have, for a century, been silent witnesses to the ocean's slow patience. The moment the first bar was lifted, the ship's story shifted. Paper manifests and whispered histories found physical form. Items that had existed as inventory lines in archives became tangible. Stamped faces, assay marks, imperfections that told of handling and transport. Each artifact had to be mapped, photographed, and logged. The retrieval process was slow and deliberate. We used pressurized recovery boxes to bring items to the surface, then move them immediately into controlled environments to halt deterioration. When artifacts are submerged for so long, the simplest act, the first breath of air, on their surface can be devastating. That's why conservation begins the moment a crate is closed on deck and continues for months and years in laboratories where time is measured in desalination cycles and microscopic observations. We sought a human face. In archives and letters, an American businessman's name kept surfacing. Discreet, elusive, the kind of figure who arranged private consignments and trusted the anonymity of sealed crates. Private consignments were common then. Wealthy individuals moved valuables by ship for safety, investment, or discretion. The records are often sparse. Sealed crates, a clerk's note, the absence of inventory. That absence becomes a mystery that lasts a century. For the descendants, the reality of recovery was both relief and pain. Things that had existed as family rumor were suddenly factual. An heirloom that had been a whispered absence became an object in a tray under bright museum lights. There are no easy answers when artifacts are recovered from a site that is also a grave. The ethical imperative is to remember those who were lost. The legal reality is complicated by multiple jurisdictions, by international agreements, by the moral weight of public stewardship. We worked with international authorities and descendant families to make decisions about custody, display, and interpretation. The artifacts will be conserved publicly, their stories told within broader contexts that include the lives of passengers and crew, the history of maritime travel, and the ethical dimensions of recovery. The ocean will always hold more than we find. Each recovered object forces us to ask how to treat the dead, how to balance history with private property, how to bring the past into the present with care. We went to the wreck seeking answers. What we took home were questions about who we were then and who we are now. The objects are silent, but they compel us to listen. To see the crown, the bars, the pearls, the raw nugget together is to see a mosaic of human yearning. For security, for beauty, for the keeping of things that matter. They are traces of a life that tried, for reasons private and personal, to move wealth across an ocean and keep it safe. In the end, the sea does not let us keep our secrets forever. It keeps them differently. It preserves, it erases, it contextualizes. The items recovered from that wreck are not answers. They are witnesses to past choices and present responsibilities. We listen to them not to possess their story, but to be reminded of the tangledness of memory, the weight of loss, and the care. Ode to those who did not return. The ocean remembers. We listen, we learn. We keep the promise of care. The lights in the museum gradually dim, and one by one the glass cases illuminate. The small crown, the gold bars, the strings of pearls, and the raw gold stone, each resting on velvet cushions, each with a small plaque detailing its history, description, and the journey it took to arrive here. The murmurs of the crowd are audible, not in excitement but in quiet curiosity and respect. In a conference hall, a round table of researchers, maritime law experts, family representatives, and museum officials has formed. The discussion is calm, but purposeful.